My middle section on these things, it looks like the bottom of a melted candle. I mean, I'm seeing these on YouTube and I'm just so discouraged. I'm having to give it straight to the Lord.
Okay.
But here's what I want to say.
All right.
All of a sudden, at 50, whatever, maybe 50, something changed and I just no longer had the desire for hamburgers.
That is crazy.
I know. And hamburgers are like, you love hamburgers.
I love
You love a good queso. You love a creamy salsa
and a good
dip.
French fry.
And a good
French fry and hamburger go together.
Now, I have not neglected my love of French fries through this journey. But for some reason, I don't know what's happened. It's just like, you know how they say that your taste buds flip over every 7 years? Maybe this flip just didn't include hamburgers for whatever reason. Justin, are you a big hamburger fan?
I'm a huge hamburger fan.
Me too.
And my wife never wants them, so I can only get them when I'm alone with it.
No, what you have to do is you go to a place where they have hamburger and.
That's true. That's true. Hamburger.
Well, that's what I'm doing now.
Hamburger and.
But you know where I went and I thought, well, this will get me back on board. I went to In-N-Out with my family.
Oh, In-N-Out is not that good.
You don't think so?
No,
Oh my goodness.
Well, if you get it,
start a riot.
if you get it animal style, it's really good. Have you ever had it animal style?
What the heck?
So let me tell you, try
Is
it again.
Is it alive? Are you killing it?
Try it again and ask for an animal style. And then it's got, they basically dice up and grill onions in like a mustard sauce.
No.
You don't like grilled onions?
I'll try it. I if I can get back around to burgers.
Well, In-N-Out's also not very convenient here. So,
but I'm not kidding. I used to eat burgers all the time, everywhere.
Especially with me.
Loved them. And then all of a sudden it was over.
You got to go to Pappas Burgers.
There's still more burger to try. Yeah. Maybe that's it. Maybe I will.
We have a whole episode of this podcast about burgers. Do you remember that? We had Carol Sautier and Robin Estrada.
Yes. Maybe I need to
you need to go back and listen to that and check out.
It's funny because I had lunch with Robin yesterday. We were in a restaurant that was so poorly lit that I felt like Robin and I were on our 5th anniversary date.
I was there, yes.
I'm like, Robin, could you just get maybe a candle going back here? So Robin and I did, but I did not divulge to Robin in person that I no longer like hamburgers.
Yeah, well, I think it would probably ruin the friendship.
I don't want to ruin our friendship.
Yeah, you shouldn't devoid.
Well, speaking of friendship, I'm pretty excited to have one of my closest friends here today.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello, we're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. Welcome. We're so glad you're joining us today. It's going to be a great show. Thank you. Justin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Having a good week?
I'm having a week. It's actually calmed down a little bit. It was chaotic for a while, and now it's feeling better, and I'm finding a new rhythm, and I'm able to do things in my job that I have not had the time to focus on, and it's been great.
You're saying this kind of coming off of Easter and getting
then the Rooted series was a big deal. So if you have downloaded our app, you're seeing, Rooted videos every day, a day in Proverbs devotion. You're seeing video series for adults, for students, for children, for Spanish. Like, we were in charge of most of that. We do contract with a company that did the main lessons from Roger. But the rest of it, we all did. And that ended up on my desk, which I was happy to do, but it was a real chaotic month or so. But we finally turned in our last videos this week.
Those videos are super that are coming out every day.
Yes.
If you haven't had the chance, please go on to the
You can go to City. Jennifer doesn't know anything. You don't know anything.
They're on the app.
They're on the app. They're also at cityrise.org/rooted if you want to see what's going on. There you go. Or our YouTube page if you follow our YouTube page. But no, it's been good. I will say, in my personal life, I continue to just have some fun on social media, and I continue to kind of find new people there. What's funny is, I had some videos get popular over the weekend. I took my kids to the beach by myself and I took videos of it because Taylor Swift was here and I did a getaway. And the first video I posted was just, hey, this is what I'm doing, because I love my wife. I want to have a weekend without kids. And I got like 400,000 views or something. And then the rest of them all got like 15 or 10. I did 8 videos in the series. And what happens on TikTok when you have like a spike in popularity, brands will start to see you and they'll reach out to you. But the problem is, I don't think the brands pay much attention to who I am. They see that I've gotten popular. So let me share with you the most recent email I got about an opportunity to partner with a brand.
Oh, well, let's hear it.
Yes, let's hear it. This brand is called Cheech and Chong Gummies Collab.
Cheech and Chong Gummies collab.
For most people, I'm not going to go into detail for listening with kids, but you know what kind of product that would be, correct? Yes. And they go on to say
exactly what a dad needs at the beach.
I guess so. Yes. They go back and they say, we believe that your audience is a great fit for our product. And I'm like, what?
They don't.
Like,
no
we
way.
are parents. I got another one that was about a search engine that when you search, they plant trees. And their whole thing was like, we see that you care a lot about the environment with your content. And I was like, I have literally never posted about a tree or a plant or cloud. Like not that I don't care, but it's just, I just think they have a copy and paste email.
Yes.
They see a video of somebody who's gone viral and they just like send it. And so I get these chaotic like offers and none of them ever work because I can't talk about them. Like either I don't actually care about the environment. I mean, I do, but like they're saying, and you can make this video about how much you love trees. I'm like, I mean, trees are fine, but I don't love them. So I'm not making a video about it or this product. I'm like, I can't endorse this product.
Well,
and then once I got one about, it was literally how to take something online, an article, copy and paste it, and then we'll rewrite it as if you wrote it. I'm like, that is a plagiarism tool. Like, so I'm getting these offers, but none of them are actually things that I can use or would use.
Like a reality show.
Well, I mean, something like, I don't know, like Crumble Cookies. They don't reach out to me and say, hey, would you do a video about our cookies? Like, I'd love to do that. Or I don't know, one time I did get some free pans. That was pretty cool. Like
that's pretty cool.
We use these pans all the time that we got for free, but.
Well, I have learned as a children's minister that I'm probably a little too competitive with my kids. We were playing kickball last night in the gym.
Okay.
And there was at some point a kid was trying to go get another kid out and he wasn't going fast enough.
Yeah.
So I kind of like ripped the ball out of his hands and say, give it here.
Gosh.
I'm way
Did you know you were competitive? Like,
I knew I was competitive, but I think that I'm really competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then the parents and the adults were all laughing.
Yeah.
And of course, I went back to the child. I'm so sorry.
Well, you played soccer for a while. Were you competitive in soccer?
I played soccer. Yes. When you say were you competitive in soccer, that can mean two things. Were you competitive in that you have a competitive spirit? Yes, absolutely. Were you competitive in that you play pretty well? No. They called me slow-mo. I did everything in slow motion. I feel like I still do that. So I have to limit what I'm playing with the kids, or we'll play gaga ball.
Yeah.
And then they'll get me out too early.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, I was helping minister to someone.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes. I find both me and my wife are like that with video games. My son, we have a Wii, which is like 14 years old now, 20 years old. And my son plays it every day. He loves it. He plays Super Mario and he loves it. And he'll ask us to play with him. And we're like, okay, fine. And then he'll mess up or knock us off. And we're like, what are you doing? Like, and I was like, okay, it doesn't matter.
Finally, you just take it from him. And you're like, go to bed. I'm going to have to do this myself.
So we find ourselves having to keep our competitive spirit in check at home as well. I think many people would be in that same boat of like, I remember, oh my gosh, in college, did you ever like go to like a casual game of volleyball with friends?
Yes.
And it wasn't casual?
No. And I actually was okay at volleyball.
Yeah.
Considering I never really had a lesson.
Yes.
But
yes.
I remember Andy and I were on summer missions and I had big crush on Andy. Mm-hmm. And we were playing against lifeguards, like lifeguards.
Like
they're
literal
all
people
super
from
healthy.
Like the Top Gun scene.
Yes. And Andy and I, we're like trying to stay at this level with these lifeguards. And I remember the comedy that ensued of us trying to look like these really cool, amazing. Actually, Andy's really good at volleyball.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was just going to be casual, but
Yes.
they were really good.
Dude, that was college for me, as I wanted to be social, but they did care. Like, it was a Christian group, so they were like surface level nice about it, like, oh, it's okay.
Oh yeah.
But
hey, why don't you take a minute out? We're gonna bring
or they would
in-
just start playing my whole section, and just like not allowing me.
Before you know it, you're just pushed over to the corner. Hey, if you'll just keep that spot.
But
keep that
so
covered.
much of relationships in your early years, especially as a guy, revolve around sports. I'm glad to
absolutely.
be past that season, because like for a while I was like, hey, let's go play basketball. I was like, not me.
And you didn't collect comic books either.
No, I didn't hit any of the standard guy like relationship building things. So I really had to work for it.
All the friends you have.
All the friends I have, I really had to work for. I had to charm them with my funny personality.
Well, you do have a funny personality, so that worked out well.
But that was college. So I understand what you're saying about competitive, but also understand the other side of it of someone being competitive and you not being ready or able to help them.
Or a child.
Yeah, or a child.
Who's looking at their children's minister, yanking the ball from them to take over.
Did y'all win?
No, and I don't want to really go into that. I don't want to go into that on the air because no one needs the blame. But it's a good time. I always love hanging out with kids. It's a good time. Well, I'm excited about the show today because we are here with one of my closest friends, Jean Pennington.
Jean Pennington. Hooray.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Jean was one of our first guests on the show, and we even mentioned her in our top 100 episode.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
So what we did was we went back and talked about some of our favorite episodes, most memorable episodes, and you were in the top for both of us.
Hey, there you go. That was sweet.
Mostly me. But I think so I decided to bring you back today because there are a few things that I just admire so much about you. But one of them is that you continually work to grow in the Lord, in your knowledge of the Lord, and your ministry to others from what God is teaching you. And so you took a group of ladies through a prayer study here recently. And I just wanted to talk to you about what that experience was like. What's it like when you sign up for a Bible study around here? So you guys did the 40 days of prayer, right?
We did. And for me, it was my second time through. So it was written by one of our former pastors, Barry Landrum, Dr. Barry Landrum. And when I started thinking about what kind of Bible study I wanted, that just hit me. I wanted to do the prayer study. Well, it's not even published right now. It was out of print. So I went to their home and I got a copy.
She broke in the middle of the night.
Yes, in the middle of the night.
Stole one item.
Stole one copy. And I asked if I could make copies of it. And I made some copies and we went through it. Yes.
Well, and I heard from talking to you, you guys had just an incredible time together.
We did.
What were some of the things, maybe the aha moments that you saw happening as the ladies went through the study?
Well, let me just back up for a second and tell you that for me, I was having a problem with prayer. I just felt like there were times where I felt like God had let me down. And so I was very timid about prayer. And I was just kind of moving away from it. I was praying generally, but not very specifically. And so I really started thinking about this prayer thing. And then when I got together and we started doing it, it was like, oh my gosh, I forgot one of the major principles of prayer. And it's not about me getting what I want. It's about praising and adoring who God is. And for us, that was so cool. All these ladies were just amazed at how exciting it is when we started with the ABCs. We did that in Sunday school, Jess. You start with the ABCs and you go through and you list the characteristic of God. What starts with A? That's about characteristic of God, and B and C.
Yep.
And people were starting to do that on a daily basis of just listing that when they felt anxious or, and looking at the scriptures of who God is. Then you can give him your cares and worries because the foundation of who he is, and you can trust him.
Well, then let me ask this. So what were some of the things in prayer? Like, here's what I struggle with. When we talk about prayer in church, we always talk about like how great it is. When you were struggling the most, what were you feeling? What were some of the things that were causing that? Because there's going to be people listening to this that are not in a good place to pray.
Yes, absolutely.
So what were some of the things, or maybe some of the things ladies had shared with you why they were struggling with prayer as well?
Well, when you feel like, number one, there's several different things that can stop you. But for me, it was my daughter was dying. And I got all of these emails. Oh, you need to pray like this. You need to pray for this. Oh, I'm praying for this. I'm praying for that. And honestly, I got to where it was so rote. And I thought, it's all my fault.
Wow.
It's my fault because I don't know how to pray.
You didn't
for my
do this
daughter.
right.
Right. You didn't pray enough. Yeah, you didn't pray right.
I didn't do it right. I didn't go to the secret place. I didn't, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't fast. I didn't, and that is so not true. And so that's what we were talking about was it is very difficult. It's great when everything goes right and you can say, oh, God is so great. But can you say God is great when the worst thing that you could ever imagine just happened to you?
Right.
Can you say God is great? And after Jenny died and after I got this figured out, I could say, yes, he did immeasurably more. She doesn't have any tubes. She doesn't have any more cancer. She doesn't have all these things.
Right.
And so, yes, he answered my prayer, but not in the way that I wanted him to. And so that's what we talked about for a long time was just what are our fears? What stops us from praying? And a whole lot of it is because we want God to do what we want. We want him to follow our plan. And it was so good to see the ladies submitting their lives and their time in prayer to what God wants.
I think too, along with, yes, we do have this agenda. And a lot of times our relationship with God is spent reconciling what we want and what our lives is like. And so our time is spent in that gray area between where do we want to get and where we are now. And it really has little to do with our praise and worship of God. Then it comes to specific, and this is what I think when you said at the beginning that your prayer life was rocky, that you were a little afraid to pray. I think that do you mean that in some way you felt like God didn't answer your biggest prayer?
Yes.
So it's almost like you don't want to depend on him, not because he won't answer a prayer, because it will prove to you somewhere that he is not trustworthy.
Yes.
And so it's like, you know what? I want to give you this, but here's the deal. Mm-hmm. You haven't done this in the past. I want to continue to believe in you and not doubt. So the best way I can do that is not to trust you with something.
Yes. Or, I realized in Sunday school one day, I had a ankle issue and somebody said to me, well, are you praying about it? And I thought, well, no, I'm not praying about it. No, I'm not. And then I got to thinking about why am I not praying about it? What's going on here? Do I not think? Well, I don't know why, but I think I have a hard time praying for myself is another issue. That was one thing that came out with these ladies is petition is a hard thing. It's different than interceding for someone. Petitioning is asking God for yourself. And
it's funny how selfless you are, because I would say most people have no problem asking God for stuff. So for you to say that, it's easier to pray on behalf of others, that's even that to me reveals a positive aspect of your heart. This idea that you care about other people more than you care about yourself. So I just want to affirm that in you. But I will say this idea of intercession and petition or whatever, I think when you do think that's the primary reason for prayer, that's when you struggle the most with prayer.
Exactly.
Is because you've put it in this one box, and when that box doesn't fit, like you said at the very beginning, you were like, well, I realize that prayer is also, and maybe even more about praise and adoration and those sorts of things. But we really, truly are raised in a culture, a Christian culture, that's all about asking God for stuff.
Yes,
sure.
And very little about relating with God on things. And so when the asking for God for stuff doesn't work out the way we want it, it's easy to get frustrated and give up on it pretty quickly.
I'm a really good person. Why in the world wouldn't God answer that?
Yeah.
Well, I also think that we get caught up when you said, I failed at this. I did this wrong somehow. We also have that mental image of God of just not pushing every lever correctly, not earning it. It always comes back to earning it with us. And if it didn't work out, it's just what did I do wrong? And it's easier for us to blame ourselves because you don't want to blame God, because you don't want to mess with that image of who you have of God. So it's well, I probably should have prayed at this time every night. I could have fasted more. I could have spread the word even further out. I could have prevented this. And in truthfully, it's hard for us to reconcile, God said no.
Yeah. And the no was for the best. And that's what's so crazy, and it took me a while to realize that. And it was a relief for me to not see her suffer anymore. But also it was sad. And then I realized I'm sad for me. She, I was baking a birthday cake for her. I think I said this on another podcast, but I was baking a birthday cake and I was like, I wish she was here. No, my gosh, she's in heaven for Pete's sake, you know? But I think it was just really so interesting to hear these ladies as they started, adoring and worshiping and starting their prayer with praise. They felt like they were in the presence of God. And I think that is so important. You start feeling that way. And then it makes prayer exciting. It's not a drudgery. It's not something that I need to do to tick off a box. It's a moment. It's an exciting time that you can spend with him.
That's really exciting. That I think it was Brother Lawrence who wrote the practice, practicing the presence of God.
Yes.
And so he took a menial job so that he wouldn't have to use his brain really when he worked. And his whole life was focused on practicing in the presence of God.
Wow. Yes. And he worked in a kitchen. And as he was peeling potatoes, he would pray and ask the Lord. Because, these young moms, they think, how can I pray? I've got, toddlers running all over the place. I've got all this stuff going on, And yes, you can still pray. Your eyes do not have to be closed. You don't have to be in a kneeling position,
Yeah, the prayer closet has kind of become something where it's like, oh, you got to get away and you got to pray. And that's absolutely, for sure. If your schedule allows it, go for that. Well, Jesus went away and was quiet by himself. Like, well, Jesus didn't have like 4-year-olds like begging for snacks. Like, so like, in this season of life, it's okay to adjust prayer to fit what the demands are on you. And yes, you should find ways with your partner to like, hey, I need to get away for 20 minutes. Can you handle this chaos? I need to connect with God. Like that's for sure. But I love what you're saying about praying anywhere. So what are some tips? So not from the whole study, but like you mentioned going through literally the ABCs and finding a different word to praise God that starts with that, a word that describes him or, like awesome and beloved and all these things. So what's another tip or two that someone could take away that you remember from this study to help, add something new to their prayer time?
Sure. And what would the X be?
We cheated on that, I think. I think we said exalted. Yeah.
Exalted. Yes, we did say exalted. And Y is yearning or
Yahweh.
Yahweh. But another thing that came up was yardstick, which I thought that is really good. He's our measuring stick.
Yeah.
Right. Or yodeling.
Yodeling. Yes, he can yodel. He taught you to yodel. Yes. Yes.
Thankfully, no one's taught me to yodel.
That's right.
So, Jean, what were some other tips that?
Well, one of the things was to try to get away quietly. Let's say, maybe you love to be by a lake. So try to find a moment, not often if you've got a lot of kids, but turn on some music that you love and visualize yourself sitting by a lake and Jesus sitting right there next to you. And you're not asking him for anything. You're just sitting there with him because he loves you that much that he just wants to be with you. And to just think about that, to think about being in the presence without asking anything from him. And that tip came from Allison Finch. And I just think that was such a good, I've tried it several times and it's really, really cool.
What I'm finding is our attention spans are so short. Yes. And as many of you know, I've been kicked off TikTok. It's 7 days now and I'm in touch with a counselor. But when I do pray, my attention span's so short, I find myself rattling way off into a different direction to the point where I'm completely forget that I'm praying.
Yes. And one of the things, 2 tips on that, because I used to wake up in the middle of the night and have all this stuff on my mind. Have a tablet there beside you and write those things down and then go back to bed or, go back to sleep. And then the other thing is to try to walk around. It's okay to walk around and pray if you get distracted or whatever. Just walk around and make sure your phone is away from you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Your phone needs to be away from you.
Right. Well, that's what this ABC thing is about. Like, you have a pattern that your brain is forced to focus on. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly moving from A to B to C. So that, you can't do that every day all the time, but like, that's one strategy for like, if your mind wanders, you have like this category to go through. And I feel like someone, because she came and taught one of the lessons or the whole lesson to our adult Sunday, community group. And I was only there for one Sunday because I work at a church. But it was talking about other strategies, was like, I think praying through your family members, I guess. So it's finding ways to have categories that keep you focused. So it's like, your list would be short, but, say at the end, Olivia, but like you could add people.
Yes. And starting, one of the things that this talks about in the study is you create a journal. And I'm not a journaler, but I have become more so. But you create a journal and you write, your husband's name on the sheet. You have a name for your kids on each sheet, and then write down prayers. If you know that this child needs discernment or they need, whatever, find a verse that you can pray over them. And then throughout the week, have a day that you pray for your husband. Have a day you pray for your daughter or your son or whomever, and have those prayers ready so that you can pray for them. The other thing that we talked about was so much of what we think about in this world is, what school is my kid going to go to? I mean, they start that at preschool, in nursery school.
So true.
What is this? What friends, whatever. But Paul talks about, us praying for wisdom and revelation and knowledge. And we want that for our kids. And if we get them that, then all these other things are going to work out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, I think prayer is hard because you do focus on the petition intercession. And part of me is like, if God wants to do this in my daughter's life, wouldn't he do it anyway? Like, that's always been a mental hurdle for me, was like, this isn't about, I can't make God do anything. Like, I can't, like, if he wants to do something, he is going to do it. What is the purpose of prayer for me? And so something that I have to constantly remind myself is like, honestly, petition and intercession is not even about changing God. It's about changing you.
Exactly.
And it's about saying, like, as you have that communion with him, if you're asking for the wrong thing, you're going to start figuring it out. You're going to start understanding like, oh, that's not what he wants.
And also, as you're, let's say your child is running with a rebellious crowd or whatever, you start praying for your child to be surrounded by godly friends. And you start praying that as if it was already happening. And it may not come in the way that you think, but it's going to make you feel better because you're aware of this, and God wants you to see that. He wants you to desire that for your kids. And it's him. I think a whole lot of it is us being shaped as parents to understand what are the important things in our children's lives.
Yeah. It's just so hard because it does feel one-sided, because you can't like hear God. So it is one of the most spiritual things we do. Like, I guess one of the most like ethereal, hard to grab onto, like Bible reading. Okay. It's a Bible. Like, it's got words. Someone wrote this down for me. But like, prayer is such like in the air. Like, it is a discipline, it is something that you have to really work at. And so I think for anybody listening, if you're like, well, my prayer life isn't any good, it's like, well, what efforts are we even making? Right. I feel like half the time we're not making much effort.
The power of the journal comes into play. Much like Jean said, I put my husband, Olivia, and some extended family at the top of pages. I wrote the verses out, and then I wrote the specific things in their lives I wanted to pray for. And then every time I prayed for them, I circled it. Mm-hmm. I just circled it. And it was like, I'm giving this to you. And after a while, you're like, I've prayed for this 53 times because you can see the circles. Yes. And I remember when Olivia was in 5th grade, she was having a little trouble with friendships. And I was really worried and concerned. And I started praying for, like you said, a Christian believing friend. And we lived in this community at the time. It was an apartment community. And this family out of nowhere moves in right down the hall from us. And he is a pastor locally. Olivia and Hawan are the same age. They meet at the pool during the summer. And she is like a little 53-year-old Christian lady in a 5th grade body. Oh. It was amazing. And I just,
So sweet. Yeah.
to see God and God works in our lives in all the ways. But what I think is so powerful is that you, in your prayer life, allows you to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the vision of what he's doing. It allows you to see and be with him in relationship as he works out the steps of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're very aware of, for example, I did not pray for TikTok to be taken off of my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just disappeared. I think that was God working in my life. Had I been praying for God to help me with TikTok, that would have been a fantastical event where I would have been like, wow. But instead it was like, oh,
He did it anyway.
he did it anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't ask him to. And it wasn't part of something we had agreed on hoping happened. It was like, God is just like, you're off this app.
Right.
So I do think the relationship is so strengthened when we see him playing out in our life. Our faith is increased that
Yes,
way.
our faith is increased.
Well, I think too, and this is something I try to my kids, like there are so many things I don't do well. I'm telling you a lot of things when it comes to like helping my kids spiritually. The one thing I do is when we go on a trip, we pray before we leave for safety. And then when we get back, we thank God for safety. Like I'm trying to like pull it full circle. It's like, hey, we asked for this. He took care of it. And I think we need to do that as adults. That's what the journal is good for, is to be able to see like, okay, I did this. Because so many times we'll ask for something and God takes care of it. And we just blow up. Like it doesn't even register.
It doesn't even
register. We
right.
forgot that we prayed for it.
Yes.
So the journal to me is a way to pull that full circle so that like when you do ask for something and you wonder like, is God even listening? You look back, it's like, oh, he did. And that's what I'm trying to teach my kids very, very slowly. Is like, at least in that moment, we prayed for a safe trip. We came back on a safe trip. Like, let's thank God for that safe trip. Because that's what we asked for. And I think we can do it with our kids, but more importantly, we should do it with ourselves.
Yes. And to your point of how do you pray? Well, number one, when sometimes all we can do is yell out, help me, Lord. And then we have to remember that the Holy Spirit, he groans our prayers. So even if we're praying incorrectly, quote unquote, incorrectly, which I don't know that there is incorrectly, but unless you're praying to someone other than God, then he is going to hear that. But then the other thing is Tim Keller, who I think is an amazing Christian pastor of our day. And I was at a seminar with him, and he said, I get bored with my prayers. Wow. And so I started praying through the book of Psalms. And it's amazing that you can take a psalm and read just even reading a few verses. And if something sticks out to you, then stop and pray that, or pray the Lord's Prayer, or pray the 23rd Psalm. And so you can start off with things like that. And the Psalms is a whole book of prayers.
True. And they're beautiful and meaningful.
Beautiful.
We're about to start a sermon series in the book of Psalms. We're going to do a 4-week series in the book of Psalms starting on Mother's Day.
I did not even think to bring that up.
Well, the Lord brought it up.
Well, there you go.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
Well, Jean, now you're moving into another study. We discussed this.
I am.
You're going to be leading a Bible study, and people can still come.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about it.
It's going to start the Wednesday after Vacation Bible School in June. And it's going to be on Wednesday mornings from 9:30 to 11. And we are going to study the book of Ephesians. Ephesians. And we're not using a video series. We're not using a special workbook. We're going to take the Bible and we're going to read it, and we're going to write out.
I love that.
And we are just going to study it.
I do. I love it. Listen, so when I was in student ministry, that's how, when I disciple someone, which I haven't done in a while because my new role is just weird. But like when I do one-on-one discipleship, that is what we'll do, is we'll read the Bible separately. And then I'm saying all you do is come with a thought you thought was interesting from that chapter. Do not leave that chapter until you can write something down that was interesting. Yeah. And then I did that in a small group once where we just read out loud a chapter. And then as we went through, people were highlighting things that were interesting. And we finished the chapter. We said, so what stuck out to you? And it was literally like the most powerful conversation I had about the Bible in my entire life with a group of people, because it was not prescriptive. It was not some guy on a video, which works in a lot of ways, especially when you're on your own or you're looking for specific teaching. But to be encouraged by fellow believers, it's so much easier when all of the teaching hinges on us sharing what the Holy Spirit's saying.
Yes,
So that's, it sounds like guys probably can't come to this Bible study, but maybe I'll sneak in.
You could sneak in.
Sit in the back.
But you know,
Probably won't kick you
one of the
out.
things that one of the verses in Ephesians says that part of our job as a believer is to equip the saints. And so we're equipping each other to not be afraid to read the Bible and to study it on your own. You don't have to do commentaries. You don't have to do all this other stuff.
Right.
God's going to speak. And I love the book of Ephesians. It's God's love letter to us. So I just love it. So I'm very excited.
Oh, I really want to go.
Well, you can.
I'll have
if
to
you
jump in for a little while here and there.
It's just 3 weeks. It's
CityRise.org/women.
only 3 weeks. We're going to do 2 chapters a week. We're just going to do a little summer.
Right after you get back from camp.
Yes.
Yes, you'll need it.
I'll be in camp, actually.
Yes.
In fact, that's Wednesday the 14th you start, right? June 14th?
Is that? Yeah, I don't know when Bible school is.
I will say this. I'm sure we'll be on the website at cityrise.org/women when the time comes for that information. So
yes,
keep
it's
your eye.
actually out there,
Yes.
so you
Okay.
can sign up
Kristen
now.
Campbell will have that
Yes.
up
Keep
front and
And
center.
speaking of Kristen Campbell, she wanted me to say that there's a senior ladies luncheon on May the 11th. And I'm actually going to speak just a little bit on that at that place.
Once
And
again,
the decorations are gorgeous.
Yeah.
So just come to see the decorations.
cityrise.org/women to learn everything, or you can email Kristen at
Yes, free
kristen.campbell
lunch.
at cityrise.org.
Yep.
So who's invited to the senior lunch?
Anybody, I think if you're 50 or older.
Oh my goodness.
You made
I
it.
know. You can do it.
Ah.
Jennifer,
you made it.
are there.
It's funny because in our church, people don't often
know.
they consider themselves
I
senior
know.
adults
And yeah,
until they're like
Well, yeah.
literally in the grave.
85,
85,
90.
90.
I do want to speak to that. I will say when I walk
Speak to that.
when I walk into a senior adults gathering like VBS, they have a senior adult VBS, like they are vibrant gatherings. Like,
Sure they
yes,
are.
for sure there are people who are very elderly, but there is a whole span of an entire generation or two that gathers. And so if you're someone that's like, well, I'm not a senior, okay, like just forget about the title and
Exactly.
you're missing out on a great fellowship simply because the word senior you think doesn't apply to you, which is fine. No one's going to say, hello, senior, welcome.
Right.
Like no one cares.
Well, I will say I accidentally stumbled into one of the young adult events and someone immediately let me know. Now, you're not supposed to be in here.
Does that someone Ben Hayes?
I know, right? No,
Wow.
Ben was really nice because I think I was helping out with something. But this
Yeah.
guy walks up, he's like, now you're not supposed to be in here. And I was like,
That is
I don't
wild.
know that I've ever wanted to physically attack someone so much in church. So, well, Jean, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming and visiting with us again. We always love the things that you have to say. Our get to know you question, we're still doing that. This time is, as a child, what did you get in trouble for the most? If you got in trouble generally as a child, what was it for?
Yeah. It's funny. It's what my daughter gets in trouble for the most right now. So it is coming back. It is so true that your kids come back and do exactly what you did. So my daughter cannot shut her mouth at school.
Mm.
Like when she has a bad day at school, it's because she would not be quiet when she's supposed to be quiet. If she was joking with a friend, she was talking, like she could not keep her mouth shut. The first time I got in trouble in school was in kindergarten during nap time. When we used to have nap time, I would not stop talking to my neighbor. Like I would not shut up. And so I'm seeing it in my daughter. I'm seeing, the generational curse of talking too much and when you're not supposed to. So when I got in trouble at school, I was a great student. And as I got older, like I figured it out. I started controlling it. But in my younger years, if I was in trouble, it's because I would not shut my mouth. Like I could not stop talking to the people around me.
That was definitely one of mine as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's no surprise.
I had a little bit of that too, but my biggest problem was in my early years was we used to have to drink a milk in school. And I remember in first grade, they would bring us a carton of milk and we were supposed to drink this carton of milk. I hate milk. I mean, I cannot stand it.
Even to today.
Absolutely. Milk, mayonnaise.
I don't think I
no.
knew that.
So,
Mayonnaise, Jean,
So
mayonnaise.
I figured out how to take that carton of milk. I don't know what I did with it, but I would hide it and go to the bathroom. And I didn't pour the milk down the drain. I flushed the entire carton of milk down the toilet. So once a week, while I was in first grade, the plumber came to the school and took the carton out of the drain. Well, my first grade teacher, one day I walked up to her desk and she said to me, "This is my first year of teaching, and because of you, it will be my last."
Because of the
your
milk
problem?
She didn't know about them. I don't think she knew I was the one who was flushing the carton down. I did it secretively.
She said,
There was
because
other
of you?
issues. Other
She
issues.
told me because
Wow.
of me that she would not teach ever again.
Wow.
So I stopped her from teaching.
Okay.
Well,
So
Well-
I think I win.
That's problematic for so many reasons. For a grown woman
Right.
to say that
To
to
say
a
that
child.
to a
Goodness
child.
gracious.
Were you chatty as well?
I was chatty.
Yeah. It's hard.
I was chatty.
It's hard not to chat when there's
Yeah.
so many friends around.
And they would bring cake around, and you could buy for 5 cents. You could buy a piece of cake, and it was the yummiest cake ever. But I never got to get any because my mother would say she's talked, so she can't have cake.
Oh, no.
Oh, no wonder you love.
I know
You
it was
love cake
bad.
now. You
I
make
loved
delicious cake now.
cake, and I hated milk, and
Wow.
it's all.
You know,
from my
growing up
childhood.
when I grew up, ADHD wasn't really a thing. We didn't know as much as we do now. And I was like, just had it so terribly. So I never had supplies that I needed to have. I never had homework prepared that I needed to have. But the only thing I was prepared to do was talk. So by the time the teacher's trying to get things going, I've already forgot my homework. I've already had to borrow a pencil. Someone's already had to give me paper. And now I have no interest in what we're doing. And it was just like the perfect combo of the teacher being so frustrated with me.
Yeah.
But I remember one day I forgot my homework and I told the teacher that it was in my locker. And he said, "Well, let's just go to your locker and you can prove it to me."
Wow.
And this is in high school. And I said, "All right, let's go." And so I didn't know what to do. And I decided I wouldn't like lead him to my locker. We would just walk around the high school and we walked around and around, and I keep looking. I'm like, it could be any, I can't believe I've lost it. And he's like, "Certainly you can find your locker. Don't you go to it every day?" And I said, "You'd be surprised how hard these are to tell apart." And it was like, and eventually I think he may have given up.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just said,
Sent you to the principal's office.
maybe it's not.
That's so funny. No, I turned into the perfect child in school. Like there was one year where I was in 4th grade in a class, in my homeroom class. And in 4th grade, we kind of moved around a little bit, but we stayed with the same kids. And come to find out through my mother, they put me in the worst class so I could be a good influence.
mentor.
Mhm.
The worst year of my life, literally the worst year of my life. There was a moment where it was kind of the opposite of what Jean said. Well, similar, but opposite. One of the teachers pulled me aside one and she said, "I am so sorry you're in this class." Like
This should have never happened to you.
she was apologizing to me because I was with every problem kid in the school because our homeroom teacher was a strict disciplinarian. She was great. Like that was kind of her thing. But I guess they're like, let's put in a couple of good kids too and just gotta like throw them to the wolves or whatever. And so it was miserable so bad. A teacher apologized to me for being stuck in that
Sorry
class.
this has happened to you.
It was
Well,
traumatic.
there you go. Now you know the dark past.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
of us.
Yes.
Well, I thank you guys for being with us on YouTube or
Listening, yes.
wherever you're getting this show now.
show. Thank you. If you enjoyed this show, we'd love for you to send the link to somebody you think would also enjoy it. A great amount of insight about prayer. We'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe if you're listening on a podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube,
Rate.
like it. Like, just give us a thumbs up. It's free. Give us a comment that helps us in the algorithm get the word out about our show because we are talking to really incredible people every week, and we are continuing to do so because God is working in the lives of our people, and we want to show them off. So that's what's happening. You can always email us at podcast@cityrise.org if you have any people you think we could talk to that you think would be interesting. We'd love to do that as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing Podcast from the CityRise Network based in Houston, Texas. CityRise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.